And welcome back. Now, you heard there with Desiree Chauke that the agenda will also be following up on this story, but we're going to pick up on it first now. Organizations representing blind and visually impaired people are currently converging at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition offices and will be marching to the union buildings this morning. Together with musicians, artists and authors as well as filmmakers, they are demanding that it be legal to translate material to braille and other accessible transcripts and for creatives to receive fair royalties in return. And currently, it is against the law to do so and also to import braille books into the country. So to tell us more about these struggles, we're joined by Jace Nair, who's the CEO of Blind SA. Jace, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning to you and to the listeners, and thank you for this opportunity for us to alert the greater South African population of the challenges blind and partially sighted people in particular face with a book famine. The 1978 Copyright Act does not provide exceptions and limitations to allow for the transcribing of works in accessible formats like braille, DAISY and audio, so that blind and partially sighted persons are able to access books. For the last 10 years, we've been advocating with Parliament for exceptions and limitations, and we thought it was a very positive move in March 2019 when both houses of Parliament approved the Copyright Amendment Bill. That was then sent to the President for his assent. However, the President sat on it for about almost 14 months, and Blind SA had to initiate legal action in the Constitutional Court, requesting the President to take a decision on signing the Copyright Amendment Bill or referring it back to Parliament.
Now, perhaps just to, bring it home and make everybody understand. Well, our apologies there. That link seems to have broken up to Jace Nair. We'll try and redial him just to get a sense of, more pertinently, what people who are blind are actually going through as a result of the Copyright Act and what it imposes on them, as Jace was explaining. Jace, I believe you're back. Apologies there, that link just broke up. Yeah. But I was saying perhaps in just trying to bring it home to the rest of South Africa, just to get a better understanding of the impact that this Copyright Act currently has in its current form on people who are blind, especially when you are poor, and you can't import books. You cannot afford, in some instances, to even go to a school. How does this really impact people?
Certainly it does, because less than 0.5% of published works is available in an accessible format, and most of that is being produced by NGOs. The Marrakesh Treaty, which was signed in 2013, has come into force with over 90 countries signing it. South Africa has not ratified it as yet, saying that they first want a copyright regime. As a result of that, we are unable to import or export books into the country that are accessible, and we therefore have a book famine. It impacts on our learners at schools, at universities. We're not able to compete at the same level as other persons. So we are urging Parliament to make sure that the Copyright Amendment Bill is passed without delay so that we can have access to published works. The Copyright Amendment Bill also affects blind and partially sighted persons because we are educators, we are learners, we are performers, we are entertainers, and we are creators as well. And therefore, access to fair royalty, access to fair use also is significant for blind and partially sighted persons.
Jace, I'm just a bit curious. Why do you suppose the import of braille books and the other issues that you discussed with us were declared illegal to begin with?
I think it's to do firstly with the understanding that there are economic factors at play, and big business.
Right, it's just struggling.
Particularly the United States, our government.
Our apologies. My apologies to you as well, Jace. That connection just breaks up from time to time. So I was just trying to interject and then it came back. But let's continue there from where you left off.
Yeah, saying that the pressure from the United States and the EU in terms of big business rights holders putting pressure on South Africa not to have
Well, I do apologize sincerely there for that connection to Jace Nair, and we are, of course, trying to talk about that march that will be taking place later on. I think comforting us at this point is the fact that we know that the agenda will also continue. They will pick up in covering this particular march and be discussing more of the matters. But let's just see if we can get back to Jace. Jace was talking about the Copyright Amendment Bill that is currently before Parliament. Hasn't been signed into law as yet, but of course there has been some progress. But the question is then, how does this seek to address the issues, and does it seek to address them sufficiently? Jace, I'm not sure if you can hear me right now. If you can, perhaps in response to that question, how will the amendments actually address the issues that you are currently aggrieved about?
Certainly, the Marrakesh Treaty makes provision, firstly, for accessible formats being braille, daisy, audio, and large print. It also makes provision for the reproduction of accessible formats at the same time and at the same price. Currently, it costs us enormous production time to produce these books in accessible formats. We are urging rights holders to use software that could help us to have accessible formats. Section 19D in the Copyright Amendment Bill is based on the premise of the Marrakesh Treaty, and we believe that by South Africa ratifying the Marrakesh Treaty, blind people in this country would have immediate access to hundreds of thousands of accessible formats that are available in the United States, in the EU, as well as from the East. So certainly it would help improve access to information for blind and partially sighted persons.
And with regard to blind people and their actual creative intellectual property and copyrights, given the law in its current format and how that has actually adversely impacted on them, the amendment bill, is it addressing all of those issues sufficiently as far as you're concerned?
It certainly does make, it provides an enabling environment for fair royalties for the collection societies to make sure that they provide these resources equitably to creators and performers. The access by performers would ensure that there is greater livelihood and they can earn an income from their creative abilities.
So, Jace, as we wrap this, please tell us more about the march today, the plan for the day, and also, again, what your hopes are. What are you hoping to achieve when you get to the union buildings?
Firstly, we have tremendous support. We now have over 200 blind people that have gathered outside the offices of the Department of Trade and Industries and Competition. The DTI is the custodian of the Copyright Act, and that's why we are assembling out here. We will be marching together with supporters, performers, musicians, actors, authors, and things that will support our cause to the union building. We have correspondence that blind people have written in braille. We also have put together a memorandum that is in braille and that we want to hand over to Parliament and to the presidency so that they can be aware of the challenges that they're going to have in reading that memorandum because it is in braille. And that is how we have to cope with print, which we are unable to read. So we are hoping that by the SONA next year, government would put together a timetable to ensure that the Copyright Amendment Bill passes through Parliament without much delay and immediately ratify the Marrakesh Treaty so that we can have access to this hundreds of thousands of accessible publications.
And that's interesting, Jace, because you say that you're going to hand over that memorandum in braille. Are you going to stipulate any timeframes as to when you would like a response from government?
We did indicate in our memorandum that we expect a acknowledgement of a proposed timetable by the 27th of January. We know that Parliament will resume in mid-February, and therefore we expect that within the next 6 months that the Copyright Act should be passed through both houses of Parliament.
Well, we'll leave it there for now. Jace Nair, who is the CEO of Blind SA, talking to us about the march that is going ahead today. This is to the Union Buildings with the intention of getting government to allow policies that will see blind persons access braille translated materials more easily, amongst others. And the agenda will, of course, be covering that particular event as well. And in other news, British Prime Minister